Good evening. We got enough chairs back there? If everybody had a chance to check your membership out front on your way in, I hope. And remember our book in the third printing, Pebbles and Flowers. If you haven't already had a copy of that or send it to a friend, please do. It's a very good book. And Jerry reminds me that we have 23 squares left on our rug. And this is Jerry Hungerford, Johnny Barnett, Mary Ann Lincoln, Paul. Their project also included calendars, and we have 40 of those left. And next year they won't be any good, so you've got to pick them up tonight. And don't forget refreshments in the back. We have a lot of those. Something that we are fortunate in the Historical Society. I mean, a lot of people come up, they have one of these, and they have one of those, and everything else. And some of them have crazy names, but we have a thing called Willie Bob. As Willie Britton and Bob Britton. They put together another program tonight. And I'd like to introduce Bob Britton Jr. to introduce our speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Timer. Kathy Grabowski reminds me that they're selling tickets for the dinner, which is going to be March 12th, Friday night at 6 p.m. And if you've already renewed your membership and you haven't gotten your membership card yet, you can stop out there tonight and they'll give you that. But tonight's program is Russ Von Beren is presenting a talk on Alice Wooding, a true Bethany character. Russ has known Alice since 1946, so I'm sure he will be an authoritative source. Just a reminder, we have programs coming up in spring, in May. We have a talk. My father, Bob Brenton Sr., will give a talk on the history of Bethany Mills. And in the fall, Chris Sullivan will talk on the history of Boy Scouting in Bethany. And next winter, Don Mendes will talk on the matchmaking industry in Bethany. But please welcome Russ Von Beren and his talk on Alice Wooding.
Well, thanks for all of you coming. Now, in some places, maybe you'll think it's a little disjointed, but what I had to do is jump around from a couple of things because I didn't know exactly when some of these things occurred, but I tried to get it as accurate as possible. Okay, but anyway, there are a number of characters who lived in Bethany that I remember since 1946. There was Henry Woodchuck Doolittle, Josie Hazard, Edward Moeller, Ruth Robertson, George Lay, and Alice Wooding. And I use the word character as being an eccentric, departing from the conventional, deviates from the normal, conventional or expected course of action. And none of these people, if you got to know them, they weren't crazy, they weren't nuts, they were just eccentric. My talk tonight is about one of these people, Alice Goodspeed Wooding, better known as Allie to most of the people in the room. She was a great gal. She would give you the shirt off her back. And she was known as Aunt Alice to my children. She has been described as the odd job lady, a character, great babysitter. She's always down at our house. Great berry picker, lover of children, lover of animals, and a tomboy. And all of those fit Alice. Alice never married. And in quotes, couldn't find anyone who agrees with me. Quote, never wanted to wait for someone else to decide what to do. And no one is going to tell me what to do. Okay. And some of the people will probably say, wait a minute. I'm lost already. There it goes. Okay. Here's a picture of Allie. There's a few to start. Where do we turn the lights off, boys?
He's getting them.
Where do we get the lights from? Something like at Allie's house.
Looking to strike. No right, Frank.
Okay. Allie. You, Miss Wooding. And these are all kind of later in life. Probably she was 80 in all of those pictures. A lot of people say, where was the Wooding farm? Well, if you came over from Amity Road, you come down and you come over Rainbow, come back down Carrington Road to Wooding Hill, or Hoadley Road, go down over the bridge. You should be coming down Wooding Hill. This was around 1900. This was Button Ball Road, and it is now Hoadley Road. And this is going up Wooding Hill Road, and that's the old Hoadley house, which only the foundation is there now. And then as we approach the Wooding farm, this is the Wooding farm. This would be taken probably 500 feet below it. And this was the picture of the farm, taken from the north. The house, I don't think I'd ever seen a picture of it when it was painted. It was back then. And this is a picture of them putting on the cupola or the barn back around 1900. This is a picture of the house, and this is Alice's uncle, George Levi Wooding, and he's the one who took a lot of pictures that you've seen around Bethany. And that was her uncle. And I believe he made that car. He was a photographer for many pictures, but he was also an automobile salesman. And this is the Wooding house back around 1900. This is Alice's father, Will. You probably, I don't know who knew him or whatever, but he was quite the fella too. But he was not, if you want to call it, the eccentric or the character that Alice was. And this is a picture of the house. That's Will. That's Alice's father. That's Will's father, Will's mother, and this was a hired man. This is, you've seen, probably all have seen this. This was the rendition of the house around that time that Tony Falcone painted. The house was built in 1790 by Alice's great-great-grandfather. And then it passed down through the generations to Will's father in 1901, and George Levi Wooding, that was the photographer. And George Levi claimed his share of the house over Will. And Will was a farmer in 1901. He had about 120 acres. He had a couple of horses. He had 10 milking cows. And he had some young stock also. And he used to take the milk daily, cow wagon, down to Whaley Avenue in New Haven for New Haven Dairy. And probably 5 or 6 years went by, and then Will started to phase out the farm as such and got into other things. And he started to cut wood, sold wood, traded animals. They were always trading animals. They buy one time, turn around, sell it the next day. Cut and sold hay, and he always had, back up to around 1950, he would sell, cut and sell cedar posts. Cedar posts. Will married Bertha Goodspeed Wooding in 1902. They had 4 children. There was Mary Susan, Alice Goodspeed Wooding, Edward Wooding, and Ada. Alice was the only one of the 4 that did not marry. Alice was born in 1905. And I remember she telling me, and somebody else told me one time, that the doctor to deliver Alice, and she was delivered in the home by a doctor, and he came up Gaylord Mountain to deliver Allie, and he charged Will $2. And of course, I always ask Alice, I don't know whether Will got a good deal or not. But, whatever. And in one of Will's diaries that the Historical Society has, Will, in that day, Will says, it's cloudy, I've done chores, and a little girl born. That was his entry into the town. As they were all born. Ada was born in '09, and the other ones before them. And you say, who did they play with and so forth? But Bertha, the mother, after they were all born and everything, she said, well, you know, there's 4 of you, and you don't need anybody else. You can play with yourself. So basically, that's what they did. They played around the house, whatever they did, threw balls. One of the stories I heard, they threw balls on the roof and they go catch them. They played with animals. They climbed trees, picked flowers, picked berries. That's why anywhere Alice learned that trade. And they listened to an old phonograph. I don't know whether you can see it. It was an old Edison machine. And this is the horn and so forth. That happens to be Tyler Davidson's daughter. But anyway, and this was the old swimming hole down the brook, Sanford Brook, across from Alice's house. And this was a picture that Hazel Happy showed. And these are, most of the children are Lonsberries. But this is where Alice used to go swimming too. And when I met Alice, the thing is, that was also the trout pond that Alice went also fishing in. And she also used it for her bathtub. In 1913, Alice went to the Smith School over here on Carrington Road. She walked to school. It was about a mile and a quarter, I guess. And you used to say, well, what did you eat? She said, well, we had to carry our lunch. And they never had any tuna fish in those days, so we used to have peanut butter sandwiches, jelly sandwiches, an applesauce sandwich, which might have been a little soggy. Pie cake, and some days her mother would put in a slice of bread pudding. This is a picture of some of the children out in front of the Smith School. I said they walked, it looks like they came on their sleds. And some of those years they didn't have enough children to operate the Smith School. Alice had to go down to the Beecher School down for 2 years on Sperry Road, and this is a picture of Beecher School inside. I don't think any of those children are Alice. But anyway, she did that. She walked down there about probably a mile and a half, a mile and 3/4. In 1919, this is a report card of Alice, and let's see, arithmetic, I don't know, the average scores were probably around 60 in the Foraging period. Grammar, over 80, history. 100. And I always sat there and I said, well, the history, what did they encompass? The east side of Bethany? But anyway, geography, same thing. Spelling, all 100. Reading, up in the 80 to 100. But anyway, the Smith School in 1920, there were 20 children. There was 4 in the 8th grade, which is the highest grade there when Alice graduated. She went about 145 days out of 190. I believe that was because of snowstorms and things like that. And Alice was the only child in that school out of the 20 that received an A for the year. In somewhere around 1920, 1922, Alice worked for her father, and as her sisters would say, she was the ultimate tomboy. But she worked there, she milked the cows, she fed the chickens, she picked fruit, did the gardening, washed the clothes, cut wood, and hay. Around 1925, she did ride her bike down to Hatfield Hill Road, to the Landcraft house. It was owned by an Elson Beecher. He was a printer. Alice used to ride her bike down there and work for him. I think she worked at the print shop. I don't think she sat tight. She probably cleaned things up. But this happens to be the Beecher Bicycle restaurant that was on Route 69. And this is Elson Beecher with the guitar. I just threw that in. In 1925 to 1930 somewhere, she worked for Kate Humiston, who ran the Dewdrop Inn. Kate is a silent. If you look these things up, you learn something new all the time. Kate Humiston leased the land from a Perkin, and she built the Dewdrop Inn up there, part of which is this is the Dewdrop Inn, and this is the part that was built. This was added sometime later, the part that's over here. But Kate built it basically to sell baked goods, candies, provisions, gas, and oil. And surprisingly enough, and this says it in the deed, to the traveling public. So evidently there's quite a bit of traffic going on in Amity Road. You could get a piece of pie and coffee there. Alice sold the different things. She served the pie and the coffee and pumped gas. And then she used to walk home late at night. And somebody asked her, well, you're going home late at night walking home. That's about 2.5 miles. Aren't you afraid? And she'd say, no. Who the hell else would be on the road at night? Going back to 1927, the first car arrived at the Wooding farm, the Wooding household, where nobody knows who drove it. It was 1927. And it was a 1925 Dodge Touring car, and it was put on the tax roll as Bertha. That was Alice's mother. Now we know, as far as I know, Bertha never drove. Will, her father, never drove. In fact, at one time, George Levi Wooding, the fellow that took the pictures, that was the car salesman, he drove up Alice's house with a nice car, put it in the north driveway, and said, Will, this is your car. And he said, get it the hell out of here. So back it went to Waterbury. So they wouldn't take it. But anyway, there was a car there. And as we say, we don't think Bertha drove. She always had a wagon. She always had our Surrey. And she would take the kids on her, take them to the other side of town. She'd take them to Prospect. She'd take them to fairs. They went to all the fairs. They went to Hampton. and whatever. But as far as I know, she never drove a car. Alice got her first car in 1931. And I think this is when she expanded. I really don't believe there's twice I read things about Alice going as far as New York. She went down there with an aunt one time for about a week, I think. And then she went down there again to see the Ice Follies in, I think it was 1944. But otherwise, I don't think she ever went out of the state of Connecticut. And I don't think she probably went much over 50 miles from her house. But anyway, she got the first car in 1931, which was a 28 Model A Roadster. And when she got that car, she expanded a little. She went down to Woodbridge to work for my mother-in-law, Edith Shepherd. And she used to, I always said, well, when did she go down there? And she used to always tell my brother-in-law, Fred, I went down there and you could still walk under the kitchen table. So I think it was about 31. She worked down there 9 to 7, 5 days a week. She was paid $10. And in 1935, 4 years later, Alice traded that car and sold it, junked it, wrecked it, whatever. But she upgraded to a 1929 Model A sedan. In 1939 or 40, somewhere in there. Alice used to do a tremendous amount of work on her old cars. And she used to keep a bunch of them around, so maybe she took them off the tack balls or left them in the lot. Because everybody used to go up there for parts of Model A. And if you read some of the stuff, Alice, she did many of her repairs. She fixed the lights, she fixed the brakes. She put in a clutch. One time she was taking the head off the cylinder block. I never understood what was happening, but 2 or 3 days later she had the car running. But when she used to drive the car, and this was somewhere around 1939, 1940, there was the Doolittle Garage down Amity Road down by Route 42. The building is still there. And in the 30s they used to sell Plymouths, and in the early 40s they sold Hudson. And they used to always say, when Alice came down there for gas or whatever, they used to say, why don't you get rid of that junk and buy a good car? We got factory-trained mechanics or whatever. And I was telling her what a good job they did down there, and she, of course, said that I did all my own work. Well, one day she got at the top of the hill up here on Amity Road, pulled over to the side of the road, lifted the hood, took her distributor cap out, put a cracked distributor in. Drove the car, it was missing, it was popping, skipping, whatever. Down to the Doolittle Garage. Of course, they all came out and looked at it and said, Alice, you're going to get rid of the junk. We can sell you a good car. And she said, well, just give me an estimate of what it's going to take to fix. Of course, they wrote down everything. And Alice said, that's too much money. And so she said, I'll have to fix it myself. Of course, they said, what the hell do you know about fixing cars? But anyway, Alice lifted up the hood, took the hood distributor in, started the car. Of course, it purred like a kitten, and they all came running out and said, well, gee, what'd you do? You know what you can do with your factory-trained mechanics. 1940, Allie again, well, I don't think you can call it an upgrade, but she traded in the sedan, and she got a Model A coupe. So it was a year, it was going back to a 29. She went from a 29 to a 30, now she's back to a 29. And we do have, I missed something, but that's Will Wooding with a chicken. And this, we put this in because to show that he was the, what do you want to call it, the first selectman in town of Bethany from 1924 to 1944. And this is a picture of the Wooding family. the only one that I know of is this. This is Will that you saw back with the chicken. It looks like he's got the same clothes on. This is Bertha. It's the only picture that I know of that is in existence. That's the only one I've seen. This is Mary. This is Will, Ed, Alice's brother. And this is Ada. And who has got the pants on? And the socks, but that's Allie. Okay, here's Allie's, this picture was taken in 1941. Alice is 1929 Model 8 Ford Coupe. And it was taken down in Shepherd. Of course, I said back in 31. As soon as she got a car, she branched out. She went down to work for Janice's, my wife's mother. Okay. And she used to arrive with these clothes on, with something like this, a shirt. I would be surprised. Janice said, I don't think those are pants, but the sure don't look like pants to me. But anyway, she arrived down there, and hanging in the back closet, there was, I've heard a uniform or a white dress and an elf apron. And Alice would go in the house and put on the white dress and the apron and go to work down there. But everybody said I never saw her with a dress. She did wear them occasionally. But practically all the time you saw her. But she did. She was almost like a uniform down there. And sometimes when she went home, change her clothes to go home and be cold, she'd park her Model A up on the hill up by the barn. And sometimes she'd be out there cranking it. She couldn't get it started. So we'd get Jan and Fred out there and put him in the front seat, and I guess he was something like 8 or 9. She told him how to work the spark lever. And so she'd get it cranking and turning it over. And she'd say, do, the spark, to make the car start. And then another one, Janice's mother always make the kids take the piano lesson. And this was a woman down in Woodbridge, Mrs. Alcorn, very prim and proper, a Vassar graduate. And one time the kids came home and Alice said to Freddie and Janice, she said, aren't you going to take your piano lessons today? And they said, nah, we didn't practice much or whatever. So Alice ran right over to the telephone, dialed up Mrs. Alcorn's number and says, ain't done no practicing, ain't gonna take no lessons. Somewhere around then during the war, and Alice, we have diaries for the Historical Society, has diaries from 44, 45, and 46, that Alice's diaries, and there's a lot of interesting things in here, you know. I'll tell you, every week she gets a flat, every day she gets a flat. Some days, one day she actually got 4 flats. 4 flats. But anyway, another one, she said very little about the war. There's a couple of things coming over to the town hall, to go to the ration board. One of the other things she said at the end of the war, she says, armistice signed. But other than that, you heard little about the war. But I did hear one story where they had a strap drive over here at the airport. And everybody's bringing their stuff over for the war effort because they needed metal. Alice came over in a car with some stuff in it. And she drove into the parking lot. And she looked over and there was a Model A, just like hers. And she said, what's that? And they said, oh, somebody left that for scrap. She got in and she tried it. And damn it was better than hers. She drove it home. Now, I thought, just as something here, I just read a few of Alice's diary. This was May 3rd, 1945. Fed chickens, I got dinner, I washed dishes. I sawed wood under the shed. Betty Atwood and I went to the rubber shop. Got feed for the barn. I got groceries. 8-in baby were down. Mrs. Atwood was down. Went up to Ledwith. And we took up a bee tree and got honey. Thursday, January 4th. I fed chickens, started dinner, and went to Wallingford to see Pauline. Had lunch with her. Went to Hull's. Dressed Goose for Tilly Healy. Took Goose to Susie Olson. George and Lottie were here. Went to the Grange to a shower for Mrs. Todd. Charlotte Trumbley had a baby boy. What was it? January 6th. I fed chickens and got dinner. Cut wood under shed. Gus and I went hunting. We got one rabbit. 8-in baby were down. Ed bought Spidell's house. Moved furniture over there. But basically, you can pick any one of these pages in any of these books. And basically, it says the same thing. Milked the cow and fed chicken. I went over to Hull's Orchard to pick peaches. We used to do that. Lottie and George were here. And every day, there was at least 6 or 8 people that showed up. And I don't know how much work they got done in the afternoon. But anyway, they do have those diaries and they're interesting. 1948, Alice went back again. She got another 1929 Model A Ford sedan. And evidently she drove all over. Some of the time she got stuck somewhere. She'd call Ed, her brother, to come help her and fix it. But the one place she had a hell of a lot of trouble was on my end of Wooding Hill Road, starting at about my house and going down to the brook, my Holy Road. And here's an example. She rolled over right in front of where we live. Somebody told me she thinks that there was a town truck or something. The town didn't have any trucks on it. But anyway, there was some piece of equipment there. She tried to get out of the way and she rolled over. And just flipped it on the side. And somebody told me that she had so much stuff in it that there were heads of cabbage around, and lettuce, and carrots, and all kinds of stuff on the road. She walked back up to the house up the street where Sarah McKinnon lived. And Sarah said, well, I'll get the town crew right over to help you. She said, God, don't do that. Make me a cup of coffee first. And coming up Wooding Hill Road, have you ever heard of anybody rolling over coming up the hill? She was coming up the hill, and she ran up the bank, and she told George Howard and some of the other people, the damn dog ran across the road. She did go down Wooding Hill one day, went across the bridge up the other side by the ferns, and she rolled off that hill. But anyway, no, any other accidents anyplace else? This is a picture of her sedan, which is, I think is a fantastic picture of Allie. She was going to be an artist that time. She got it right out. But anyway, 1951 license plate. And boy, I'm so proud of that car. You can see the expression on her face. Fantastic. This is her in the Doodlebug, which was a Model A cut down, made it into a truck. She's pulling a hay rake in the lawn north of the house. Of course, I remember this had to be within maybe 5 years when this picture was taken. And it was sitting out by the garden, and it was all rusty. You couldn't see any red paint on it, whatever. In 1956, a new era started. Alice graduated from the Model A's, and she bought a 1941 truck. And I believe this was really where the trash route got started. There's evidence that back around 1940 that she had the cars, but she said she still did pick up trash. She picked up some garbage or something. But really, once she got this 41 Ford, the thing really got rolling. And then in 1964, before, she upgraded again and got a 1950 Ford truck. And the last year that Allie had a car, and it seems like a long time to me, but the last time she had a car in the tax rolls was 1970. So she'd given up driving, and I believe it was basically because she was having trouble with her eyesight. She couldn't see very well. They were cataract. And Alice, I believe, she was afraid of doctors. And she's very proud. She didn't like to take a lot of freebies from a lot of people. Little things maybe. But anyway, Cliff Wilcox, some of the people in the room knew him. He was treasurer of the town for a number of years. He offered to send Alice to a doctor, have the cataract operations so she could drive and see better again. But she said no, she wouldn't do that. But Alice always, as I said before, Alice always kept a lot of the vehicles around. I don't remember how long she kept these trucks, but the Model A's she kept for a long, long time hauling around. And I met Alice for the first time in 1946. And basically it was the same thing. I had some friends, I grew up in New Haven, and they needed Model A parts. So they knew Freddie Shepherd. I didn't know Freddie Shepherd at that time. And but anyway, Fred said, oh, you can get Model A parts from Alice Wooding. So we came up here probably about 5 or 6, 7 o'clock at night, and these guys were talking to her about Model A parts. Well, you know, the trouble is, if you said you needed a condenser, which was probably 2 inches long and 1 inch in diameter, she'd go in the barn or in the house and come out with a cigar box full of them. But the only problem is you didn't know whether they worked or didn't work. You know, they weren't new ones. And some of the people would stay out there and try them. And we were there, and it was the first time I'd ever met her up there. And she said, well, you guys, why don't you come in the house? Now, Alice's mother had died probably 4 months before that. We went in the house, and Will was there, her father, but yet the house was pretty neat inside. I mean, a lot of you people had been up to Alice's house in the later years. But actually, the house was there. The house was clean. You could go in, the table was in the parlor. 6 of us sat around the table. Okay, and we were talking about cars, and Alice was telling stories and so forth and so on. And me, being a city slicker, seeing lanterns on a construction site like C.W. Blakeslee used to have in Lynn with the lantern. She lit the kerosene lamp, the hurricane lamp. Being inquisitive, of course, I go over and try to pick up the chimney. And all I hear is shh. And I had the biggest row of blisters on every damn finger you ever saw. And Alice said, a little warm, isn't it? That was some experience. I never did that again. And I built my house in 1952. I started. And of course, I wasn't very good with a hammer at the beginning. And used to bend a lot of nails. And so Allie and her brother Ed would come down every week. And they'd go around the foundation. And they'd pick out all the nails. And they take them home and they straighten them. And I believe that was the start of the Bethany recycling. And not only that, any of the wood, pieces of wood, kindling wood or whatever, look like kindling wood. Oh, they take all those too. And once we moved, then Alice was down to our house at least 3 times a week for dinner. Of course, she was there for all the holidays anyway. Easter, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. But what she would do, she'd come in the house. She said, what are you going to have for dinner? Janice said, there was always dinner time, she arrived. Janice would say, well, we're going to have spaghetti. She didn't like spaghetti too much. So then she'd go over the phone, and she'd call Mrs. Brown. And Mrs. Brown, you could hear the conversation. Mrs. Brown said something, Alice said, well, I don't think I'll be there tonight. Then she'd call Mrs. McNutt. Then she'd call Mrs. Shaw. Or whatever, anybody, who knows, Mrs. Whitehead, you name it. She'd call these people, and finally she found one. Then she'd hang up. She'd say to the lady, well, I'll be there in a few minutes. And she'd say to us, she says, oh, well, I was invited for the door. So it's just like going to a restaurant. Okay. Another one. Here's a picture of Alice, and it shows up there. There's other ones, but this is one. Here's Alice with a suit on. This is Mary Mason, her sister. I really don't know who these are. They're probably relatives. And there's probably somebody's wedding. Because Alice used to always say, and I know she went down to Olson's wedding in 46 in the same dress. And Alice said, or the suit, and Alice said, the suit was for weddings and funerals. That's what she said. Another one we have, this is a picture in our house, Cindy, that's my daughter. I don't know, it was probably 3. And it's another picture of the wooden kid. Oh, put it again. The wooden kid. And they never miss anything. This is Ada. This is Mary. This is Ed. And here's the Queen Bee Allie. They all got their dunstats on them. But Allie and Ed, they always order a party. Oh, they love parties. A little ice cream. Oh, they thought that was great. Now, I said before, Alice loved animals. Here's a picture of Allie with a dog. Now, there was a couple that she wasn't too fond of, one of the dogs. Now, Ed, her brother, was a dog warden for a long time. So I assume they picked this dog up somewhere. And Alice is probably either taking it back to the people or getting it or what. But she wasn't very fond of dogs. I think she was afraid of them. But she did love animals. And sheep, she loved sheep. She was a lamb. And I assume that goes back to somewhere around in the 30s. Here she is feeding a lamb. Now, they might have had a number of lambs, and of course in those days, they had the lambs, they cut it for wool. Sometimes they were pets or whatever, but they also ate it. And they had them for food. But anyway, Alice, I don't believe it happened before her father passed away. But Alice used to keep a lot of these animals in the house. And they all had their pets, had names. I don't know what this one is, but you can see she's feeding it with a bottle. And it's kind of piddling from the other end. Whatever. Here she is again with another lamb. And here, and she loved kids and she loved animals. And when, like the kids, that's my daughter and my nephew. Now, as soon as those kids went up there, she would bring all the animals out, let them handle like a petting zoo and so forth and so on. Here's another one she's feeding another one with a bottle. Now, this is taken in her barn. This is the famous Jimmy. Jimmy, she had for quite a while. She would feed them very well. Jimmy was getting kind of big and heavy. Probably had a big coat on, too. And my brother-in-law, Freddie Shepard, who Alice called Duke, was up there one day. I guess she had Jimmy tied off to the side of the barn. Freddie saw Jimmy, and he said to Alice, he said, gee, your ewe is bagging up. I think it's going to have babies. And Alice said, Duke. She said, ain't no you, them's balls. Another one of her favorites was chicken. Now, she had geese, and of course I think Alice knew it, but she never said anything about it. A couple of times, I know I hit one chicken going for her. And I think I hit another goose one time, and every time she'd say, I came down the road, I went out this morning, there are a lot of feathers on the side of the road. But anyway, here she is feeding a chicken at the kitchen floor out of a little can. And what she would do, she would show them to all the kids and so forth and so on. And here's another one. She's got the little chicks in the box. And these are Lydia Worcester's grandchildren. Here are the chicks. She's taking them out and showing them to the kids, like she always did. Here they are, the kids are handling the chicks and so forth. But she loved animals and she loved children. Now, one thing, they had chickens, again, they had chickens for eggs. Alice had chickens for pets. And then also chickens were good food in those days. And a couple of stories there. One time, I can't think of what the chicken's name, we'll call it Harry for this. But she brought Harry down to the house. And I get it on the shoulder. I show Cindy. And the chicken ran off in the dining room, messed on the floor. And Alice said, God, electricity's making them nervous. She sat at the table, we were having dinner, she sat at the table, the chicken was on her shoulder. Okay, another one she did one day, she called me up, she said it was a Sunday, she said, I'm bringing a chicken down, we'll have it for dinner. I said, okay, so she brought it down, I stuffed it, put it in the oven. After a while, I thought it must be getting pretty done, I opened the oven door, I never saw anything like it. The chicken was round. And it looked like it had 2 ears coming out. And I don't know, it was evidently so tough, the skin was so thick, the grease wouldn't get through it. And the grease was coming up under the skin. Like a darn fool, I took one of these forks with 2 prongs on it, stuck it in there, and these 2 things of grease go out over the end and kind of burnt my hand. I always had to go Okay, Allie. Another thing, she loved cats. But I never remember a cat in the house. I remember seeing a picture of Will years before with a cat. But I never saw a cat in Alice's house. So there's a picture up here that Sandy Rabinowitz painted, and there's Allie and a cat sitting on a bed. But I never saw a cat. If you go to the door, the back door, open the screen door, the cats looked like they had an electronic collar on. They wouldn't cross the threshold. But they were all over the back porch. But she loved them. Here's again with the cat. Here's some more on the table right outside the door. Okay. Another one she had back before. They had pigs up there every so often. Back in the 40s, and these, I know these aren't the same ones. These were later on. But she had 2 pigs. She raised them in the house. She called them Slip and Slop. Alice was, she said, everybody said, oh, she's a burying lady. And by God, she buried. I can't believe it. She'd get raspberries, blackberries, huckleberries, strawberries, and blueberries. Somebody told me the story. She'd show up over by Tuttle Road, pick up Harlan Tuttle, and go up into the Bethany bog with a couple of these galvanized zinc quart pails stuck inside of one, and then she'd come down with one big pail in each hand, and she'd have to go out and get the others. She knew all the spots.
They don't have the one berry bushes around there.
Well, no, this was going back when she was alive, but she buried up to, say, 5 years of her death in 1988. But she would go, and you could tell, she knew where all the berries were. She'd go in the Bethany bog, and one day she'd go over there, she'd pick 2 or 3 quarts. The next day she's picking 5 or 6. You know, they're coming in. Pretty soon she's picking 18, 20 quarts a day. She'd sell them for 20 cents a quart. Okay, but when she even got going so good, she'd take Ruth Atwood and Ada Atwood, and she'd pay them 15 cents a quart to pick them, and she'd sell them for 20. She had a little business going. And she went with anybody. Many, many people. You could read her books and, you know, she'd go there. And the highest I saw was 22 quarts in a day. And she'd go all over to Tuxlot, and I'm sure she went there. She was the first one to know the berries were getting ripe, and she stayed there until she picked every one off the vine. Okay? She loved to be in the garden. This is an old picture of her with a watering can. I think that picture was really, she was still working for somebody in somebody else's garden. Because I never knew her to use a watering can. And you never planted the garden. You hear people planting on St. Patty's Day, planting peas and whatever. Alice really planted the garden until the middle of June. And she had probably one of the best gardens you ever saw. She used to go out there with half a cup of water and plant every day. You'd think the things would burn up. But no, they were very good. Here she is in a garden. She even weeded. She wouldn't find a weed in it. And she'd bring all the stuff down. You know, and here she is again, working in a garden. And as I say, she planted a lot. She'd bring it down, give it to you, whatever it was. The only thing you never knew whose it was, whether it was from Alice's garden or somebody else, because she made the trips around. She'd pick up all other stuff and give a lot of stuff away. She loved to dance, the square dance. And her first partner was Ed, her brother. And damn it, Ed went off and got married. And but still, she went with Gert and Ed, and a lot of people up the street went with her from around different places. They go to Humphrey Hall over in Seymour on Friday night. They go to firehouses on Saturday night. They go to Willowcrest on Friday nights, Dunbar Hill and Hamden. And then she liked to gamble. She liked to go with play bingo. And St. Mary's on Tuesday nights, firehouses on Saturday nights, Humphrey Hall on Friday nights. She'd go over to Humphrey Hall and play bingo, and then on the way back she'd go to Willowcrest dance, and she'd go to Prospect. Even later on, even if she'd go out to sea, she'd go up there. But she would play as many cards as you could get. They'd let you play. And she said, I played more cards. I said, what do you mean? I don't know whether they gave her, they let her play 9 or 12 or whatever. And Alice would say, well, I gotta play 30. And I said, well, gee, they don't let you go with 9. She said, well, the guy next to me, he can't see very well, so I have to use his. And the guy over here, he can't hear. Like everybody. She liked to play cards. She always went to people's houses. They played cards. She used to play over at Riopel's on down the road with the boys. And that was all right. Alice liked it. But sometimes the boys did, because they also had a few stag parties they wanted to see. And they had to get Alice out of the house before the school. Of course, once the lotto and instant lottery came along, oh, she loved those scratch outs. Canning. She loved the can. Or she said she did. She'd bring stuff down the house all the time. You never knew whether it was hers or somebody else's. Because everybody was giving her things. And one day she came down and said, Ike? She called me Ike. Because she always said I was the best, I hope John Hurts here, she always said I was the best fisherman in Bethany. Isaac Wall. And anyway, she was walking across, I took the tomatoes and said thank you, and I started to walk across the thing. I dropped them on the floor, and the pork jar exploded. Tomatoes on the ceiling. Couldn't believe it. She used to go, we used to have me in which is the old Downs orchard, all kinds of fruit trees. So one day she comes down, she says, I'm going to take some of those plums, I'm going to make plum wine. And I said, go ahead. And I think that what she would do is, she was going to pick them off the ground. But when I wasn't there during the day, I think she was shaking a tree. Anyway, she'd make all this with it. She'd take the apples, the pears, the peaches, the plums. And after about a month or so, I went up there and I said, how's the plum wine? She opened up the cellar door. I'd never been in the cellar. In fact, I only had the 2 rooms of the house, the kitchen and the parlor. And so she opens the cellar door and you hear this. She ain't ready. Go up there a few days later and say, how's the wine? Open the door. Not ready. Well, after a few days, times like that, didn't hear anything, so we went, she said, this is ready. Went down the cellar. And here are gallon jugs. And some of them are the plum wine, some might be apple, some might be, I never saw anybody make wine like this. And it's just standing in the jug. And there's like this black in there. And I said, Jesus, you'll have to take the stopper out or the bung out or whatever. And she took a knife out of her pocket and scraped inside the bottom. Like that. I don't know, I think they were fruit flies. And anyway, so then she held up the plum wine. She says, it's a little cloudy, so we'll have to clear it up. So she went over to a table and she got some charcoal and shoved it down the bottle. And she said, wait a week. So I went up and I got, she gave me half a gallon. I brought it home. My father came up, his mother for dinner. On a Sunday, I said, I got some Allie's plum wine. You want to try it? Gave my father a glass of it. Took a swig, he ran for the sink. Best plum vinegar I ever tasted. My brother-in-law came up and there was a glass of it. For heaven's sake, and he said, it wasn't bad. And I said, here's a half gallon. And then Alice used to hunt in her diary. She said she went hunting with somebody. Frank Worcester said that he had been hunting with her. I don't know what they ever shot. You know, used to say in her diary, went hunting with Gus today, and Gus tomorrow, and Gus the next day, and the 4th day would say, I got a rabbit. But anyway, Janice's father and brother were going up the street from us, the old Darren's place, where he kept dry cows and heifers. And they drove in one day, and Janice's father looks over to the south and says, oh, and he sees Ed Wooding with a shotgun, and he said, Ed, what are you doing? And Ed said, they were out hunting, and a big jackrabbit just ran into that bush. And Alice is out there with a stick, poking the bush. And he says, we'll get him when Alice gets it out there. So they go in the barn. All of a sudden, they're bang, bang, both barrels with a shotgun. So they came running out of the barn. And my father-in-law said, you get him, Ed? And Ed held up this rabbit by the ears and the head, part of the backbone, and that's about all. He said, I got my half, Alice is looking for hers. Oh, she loved to fish, but I don't think she ever went further than Sanford Brook across from her house. Maybe over to Sergeant Brook, or maybe down to Wooding Hill Road, stuff like that, down by Holy Road. But she always fished just before the season. She could fish that brook, she owned it. No problem. But she had a key to her house, and you come home at night, and here'd be the meat plat with all these 6 to 8 inch trout piled up like her. All clean. Of course, I don't eat fish, so she had some for supper, and then the next day she'd come down and then she'd take them to other people. But it was great. But all that she knew was those native brook trout, and she'd catch a lot of them. One day we went over to her. I used to take her to different places. One day we took her to a pond at Beacon Falls. It was stocked by a rotten gunfight. People so we could fish in the spillway down into a brook. In the brook, only kids could fish out. So Alice is fishing in the pond. She's not catching much. I'm down the pond. Now she's fishing over in the kids' area. And all of a sudden she started screaming. And so I ran down there, and she's got this 19-inch fish. She said, "What's this? What's this? Any good?" I said, "That's a brown trout." "Oh, never saw a brown trout before." I said, "Well, you better throw it back. You don't even know what it is." And when she took it back, and she was out with her story. At one time, the water company wanted to buy the property across the street from her. And she didn't want any part of that. They weren't going to put up any no hunting and no fishing signs. And they would have given her life view. Trash, I said that she really got started in 1956 with the 1941 Ford truck. And then she used to come to my house and she was our trash lady, and she picked up the trash. Of course, sometimes, she'd be a little late sometimes, like a week or 2 or 3. And in the winter, it wasn't bad, but in the summer, it's a little problem. I had this garbage pail in the terrace where you put your foot on it, and you can pull the garbage pail up and so forth. And I was out in the garage one night. We'd seen skunks around. Janice hollers out the window. She says, "The skunks around, the skunks around." I came around and I listened. I couldn't hear anything. Pretty soon Janice, "The skunks around, the skunks around." So I got on the breezeway and I'm listening. And finally, I hear the scratching, so I go over and I put my foot on the lever and look down. "Well, Alice, this skunk had learned that he could scrape the garbage out. This day she empties the garbage pail, and the skunk goes to scrape it out and goes in." So I look down, here's the skunk. So I call Allie, and I said, "Allie, I got a problem. The skunk's in the garbage pail." I said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going to shoot it." She said, "Don't shoot it, it always sends." I said, "What do I do?" She says, "Cyanide gas. Don't have any cyanide." She says, "I got some. Up the road I go. The cyanide gas down there in the skunk." I said, "Well, maybe we can put it in the trunk and we'll take it up." She says, "No, I'll get it tomorrow. Don't worry about it. But it won't scent." Well, every time she emptied that damn garbage pail, it was wonderful around there. We never had a sinus problem. One day she was there and picking up trash, and the lady up the street said, who picks up your trash?" And Janice says, "Alice does." Well, the lady misunderstood her, but Janice said she'd send her up there. So the lady said, "The trash is in the shed, and when you get through picking it up, come on and I'll pay you." Alice walked into the door, and the lady said to her, "Why, Alex, you're a woman." Okay. Here's another thing. Love the cane. They're sitting pretty after raising cane. This was when Alice taught cane, and she did a wonderful job caning. Did it for many people. Even here you can see this later on. She's having trouble with her eyes, how close she is to the caning. But this was a course she taught from the Park and Rec here in Bethany. She also taught caning at the adult education and here she is, what's she doing? Freeing up the cane. Looks like a bunch of spaghetti. Here she is. And believe it or not, I certainly didn't recognize that's Jerry Hungerford in the picture. But anyway, she's freeing up the cane. Now here she's doing evidently some kind of a seat. Chair that she did. Here she is working on some more. Now you notice she's got things pretty well located in the house where she knows where they all are. In fact, let's go back there. No, you can't see it there. I thought I saw something. Here she is with the chair, and beautiful. It looks like the top couple of rows are not straight, but that isn't so. The chair tilts back, so it gives the appearance of that. And she did it. She did a beautiful job with cane. This is a picture of the farm somewhere around 1959. As we're going along here, here's a picture of the barns, kind of deteriorating. And this one, of course, later on is down. This end of the other one is down, and they extended the roof that goes this way on the barn. And you can see it here. Looking up from the south meadow. Now, back in the 30s, well, this is a later picture. I don't know whose sheep these were, but this obviously was taken in the 50s or 60s. But back around 1930, they did have a bunch of sheep up there. And this is the barn. I said that the other one that was in the front here, it would have been here. That was taken down, and this is the one that Edgar built, added to the other barn, and that's still there. George Benedetti, who bought the property since Allie passed away, has rebuilt the barn. Believe it or not, she's ever my laying there on the end here. And, she was a very proud person, and when she sold that to pay some bills, she didn't want anybody to know about it. She put a bunch of doors, old doors up in front of it, so nobody would know she sold it. Now, this is a picture of a sawmill that she had, and I understand, I really don't know, but Buster Johnson, a fellow that lived in Bethany, and Allie, I think Allie put some money into it, and they cut wood almost across from where Ada Atwood lived, and it was a sawmill. I don't know how well they did, but I know they cut a lot of 20-foot long wedges. Now this is Buster, and I really don't know what parade it was. It could be the Memorial Day parade. Heck of a nice guy. And that's Allie up there with him. And this was, she would always, she'd love stuff like this, where she'd go and wave to everybody and so forth. But, here Allie is at her wood pile. And these are some cows on the lawn later on, and these are Teddy Cowden's cows from up and back. But of course, Alice loved any kind of animal that was around. Now, Allie always had a telephone. They had a telephone before Alice was born. Allie got electricity about 71 to 1972. And it was given by a neighbor as a Christmas present. Before that, before she got power, she would call us, especially when there was a storm. She'd say, "What's new?" And we'd say, "Damn it, there's no power. The lights went off." And I said, "Mine didn't go off." And she got a refrigerator. She still had no heat or inside water. Okay? And, but she got along. Okay. Okay, here's Allie, and it looks like it was a little cold there. This is later on. I think that, she was getting scared of the wood stove. And so she didn't put a hell of a lot of wood in. She had a lot of wood. But here she is in the building with a heavy jacket on, reading the Sears catalog, I guess, or some of it, or either getting toilet paper. And I don't know whether it's just the light or it was frost on the window. But she's wonderful. Okay, never mind the dog, beware of the owner. This went up to her house, up on her house. After the robbery, she was robbed in somewhere like 1974, 1976. And damn it, they took 4,000 pennies. The donkey wagon and plates. I don't know. But anyway, my daughter had taken Allie around, she didn't drive, taken on her daily or weekly or whatever excursion to do a couple of errands. Call up and say, "Cindy, could you take me on a few errands?" Stopped at probably Perkins, got a little cane. Probably got groceries. They go down to some place where they had like a bulk bulky waste station in Westville. We ought to look that over. We might have found a chair. And then she went to the bank. Got home about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It was warm. The back door was open, but the screen door was out. The boys came right in with this pistol. Tied her up, put tape over her mouth. 238 who lived next door walked down and found and heard the noise, heard some noise thumping. Somebody groaned as you went in the house, and sure enough, there's Alice tied to the chair. And Dana said, well, I'll call the police. She didn't think she should touch it. She just called the police. And I said, put the tape off her mouth. And I said, never mind the phone, get me off of here. I gotta go to the bathroom. Now, one of the other things is Diane Blackwood and a lot of her friends would stop up at Allie's in the later years. And so what they said was, well, what we'll do is after this robbery, we'll clean up the place. And I remember when I got home, they said that Alice was robbed. She wants you to come up there and help her. The place is a mess. I went in the house and Alice said, you know, they robbed me. And I said, what'd they do? And she said, look at the mess. I said, yeah, but what did they do? But they took all the furniture out, put it in the backyard, and they were going to paint the parlor. The next night I got home, they said, guess what happened? I said, what? She said, Alice got some people over there, and they moved it all back in. Okay. I pushed the wrong thing there. Okay, this is the story of 1978. And I'm going to try something. I don't know if you're going to be able to hear it, whether I will. I don't know whether it'll even work.
That's the old timers we call Bird Blizzard of 34, and my name is in there. Yep.
It's quiet.
I don't know where my report card is. See. I have to look it up. I have a report card. We just had a plain card.
Yeah.
Right for the month of January, February, March.
Yeah.
And then we had the letters. Your arithmetic, spelling, and geography.
Same as now, except you got them more often, I guess. They get them every couple of months.
Oh, yeah? Oh, we didn't get it every month. You don't learn anything from that blizzard thing? Yeah, that was awful. Well, I got caught up in Route 69 for 2 weeks. I had to stay all night. I don't know how we ever had any food.
Where were you? Where?
Well, I was working at Shepherd's, and then I came up, got up there, and got stuck. And to say it, wait a minute, 2 weeks. Car, all the way was covered up. I don't know.
So, was it worse than that blizzard we had a couple of years ago here, where they shut down the whole state?
Oh, sure, it was worse than that. Don't forget it. Oh. Yep, till that. My brother's car was stuck up the road here, up above here, a little ways, and he couldn't move it. You couldn't move nothing because nobody would touch anything. The only way you got anywhere was walk. We walked over to the store, but the store didn't have much speed.
Yeah.
Finally, they got the roads opened up. Of course, everybody them days had their own vegetables, you know? They get canned.
Carry them over the winter.
That's right. They bought flour and sugar. You know?
Okay, probably so. I just wanted to put that in about the snowstorm, where she says, comparing it to 34, 78's nothing. 34, I couldn't get home from Shepherd. Went up to Virginia Whitehead's, and I didn't believe this story. And so I called Sandy Johnson, who's Whitehead's daughter. She's here tonight. And I said, well, you know, I heard this story about how Alice said she took her 2 weeks to get home. She had to stop at your house on Carrington Road. And she said, yeah. She said they were there for 2 weeks. And the last number of days, the only thing they had to eat was oatmeal. Okay, now, in this storm, Fritz and I went up there about 8 o'clock in the morning and started shoveling. Fritz, my son, started from the driveway. I started up around the woodshed, which was over there. I came down here and started this way. And then went around towards the road. Fritz was coming up. Now, the only time I ever saw a window open in the house, and especially by the telephone, Alice stuck her head out. Fritz and I had just about met. And Alice said, "You're going to have some coffee." Yeah, good hobo coffee. And I said, "You're darn right we're going to have it." My son Fritz said, "Yeah, we're coming and we're going to have coffee." Well, Alice got the pot on the stove, started heating up the water, and then she throws the grounds in, the water. And it boils a while, and now she gets a strainer, and she goes over to the back of the stove, and she gets a coffee mug. She takes her shirt tail out, wipes the inside of the cup. That's another one. She does the same thing. My son said, "I don't want the coffee." But anyway, I had the coffee. And the coffee was excellent. The best hobo coffee I ever had. Another one about that snowstorm. And you say, "You want me to do anything else?" He says, "No." 2 days later, she calls. She says, "What about my chicken?" So you go up there and you got to go halfway up the hill with the damn chicken. And in fact, she came out the day after we shoveled the snow, and where that pile is, she said, "I don't want that pile there. You got to push it up there." I said, "You know, we're going to push it up the hill, Allie." Anyway, another one, I was up there, and we shoveled up by the chicken coop and all that kind of stuff, and went up there a couple of days to see how she was. And you all know, Mike Stern came, and he was trying to be helpful. And he says, "Alice, what can I do for you?" And she said, "Well, Scott, somebody's got to go and get the eggs up at the coop up on the hill." So he said, "Okay." She gave him a pie tin. So he went out and started up the hill. About 10 minutes later, he comes back. He's all covered with snow. And he's got the pie tin. Now this is where my eggs. And in there, there's 2 whole eggs and 4 broken ones. He put all that. There's another one that Alice really, this is the other one taken to the store with those children. Handmade by Allie quilting. She loved to quilt. And, she did this by the hour. And in later years, her eyes were going, and she was having difficulty seeing, but she still quilted. She missed a stitch now and then. But the patterns and everything else were beautiful. I love this picture. Now here she is with some children again. I just put it in because she always liked kids. And whoever came up, I don't know who this was. It might have been my son when he was small. But, she would stay there and she'd bring out these little trucks. She loved these little wind-up toys. They walk around and stuff. And she'd always bring them out for all the kids. This is Tony's picture again, the rendition of the thing. And this is a picture of Tony Falcone and Alice when the Orange Bank were going to give the picture to the town, which is up in the Selectmen's Conference Room. They had Allie over there to present it to the town. And this was one of the girls that worked in the bank, or the women that worked in the bank with Allie, giving pictures to the town. Another thing that she loved were these, again, I told you about Diane Blackwell. They'd always have these, and her girlfriends, they'd always have these parties. Probably the last 10 years Alice has like had these big birthday parties. And this was her 77th birthday in '82. Now, this was probably, as it was getting going, it was just one picture of Alice. That happens to be my mother-in-law. you could see the pots and stuff over on the table, so they were getting going. Now here's one of them. This is how many people they would get it. These all the neighbors and other people would come from out of town and whatever. We can't find Allie in here. We think that might be her head there, or either that's her head over that shoulder. But anyway, they'd all be in there, they'd do all the cooking and whatever. And Alice loved this. This is another one. Allie's talking to somebody on the phone, and then there's somebody else coming out with a tray of stuff. That's Bob Britton and Lydia Worcester. And it was just getting going. You could see the coolers. You never had the coolers there. You know, before Allie had the refrigerator, she used to have a barrel on the back step. And a pipe came from the string, and the water went in the barrel. And that was her refrigerator. She'd keep the butter in it, and so forth and so on. But the birthday pictures. Okay, this is the house in 1944. This is the road, about probably in the 50s. The house in the 50s. And again, the house isn't white, but damn it, the storm door is. This is the house in 78. Now, you say, well, there's a blizzard, there's no snow. But it blew everything off the front lawn, and over there where Fritz, my son, went through, the drifts were about 7 or 8 feet in the southerly driveway. And this is Allie in her backyard. It's a good thing they took the picture where it was cleaned up. Okay. And then what happened was around 1989, Alice was having a problem. I think she didn't want to keep she wasn't keeping the heat up, and whether she got the flu or whatever it was, but she was having a heck of a time getting up there. I remember that Diane was there, and Gail Peabody was there, and we talked to her into letting Dr. Ruckman up the street come down and examine her. And as I said, I think she was afraid of doctors, but he gave her an examination. She didn't get any better, and Diane took her to Griffin Hospital. And I remember Janice and I going over there to see her in the hospital. Got up on the floor where Alice it was, said to the nurse, "Do you know what room Alice Wooding is in?" She says, "Just listen and follow." Sure enough, to go down and here's Allie. It was the only time she slept between 2 sheets. All cleaned up. But boy, she was telling them how to run the damn place. And then Diane, this is one of Diane's friends, and Diane took her home because, the conditions that she had up there, she couldn't cope with that. She stayed in Diane's house. She put a hospital bed in the dining room. And Alice stayed there for, here she is with the scratch house. Oh, she loved those scratch houses. Here she is at Diane's house. Okay, now she's back in the kitchen at her house after a month with Diane's. And Diane and her friend, they had a gas furnace installed in Alice's house. And Alice, I don't know you need that damn thing for. But anyway, with the way she was putting the wood in the furnace, like about 2 matchsticks, she needed it, and I'm sure she appreciated it. And so she lived there for probably another couple of years. Here she is out in the backyard. Now this is the house. This picture was taken just after she passed. You can see the for sale sign on it. But it was basically the way Alice left it. She went back to the hospital. She was there for a couple of weeks. And again, there's no way she was going to cope in her own home. And Edgar, her nephew, took her in over in Cheshire. She was there for about 6 or 7 months. And she passed away in 1993. And Alice, as I said, she's a very proud woman, a wonderful one, a wonderful friend. She'd give you the shirt off your back. If you ever had a problem, she'd come down and give you a helping hand. Anything that any man or woman would do, she'd do it and she would help you. Lived by herself without modern conveniences, didn't complain. She, no matter what she did, she always paid her bills. She always paid her taxes on time, whatever. And as I said, she's a very proud woman. She did, in later years when she was going to the doctor, she had some pieces of furniture up there. I guess it was her father's roller desk, roller top desk, an old Edison phonograph, and some other things. And she would never part with these. If you asked her to buy them in previous years, there was no way she was going to sell them. But because she had some doctor's bills and maybe some hospital bills, that she did sell some of that furniture. And again, wonderful friend, wonderful lady. Here's another picture of the house as she left it. And she overturned the cemetery. Here's her tombstone. That was Speedwood, 1905 to 1993. And this stone, that is the house that the rendition that Tony Falcone done. And this was done by Pete Orbit, a real craftsman. And she lies over there in this diamond cemetery. Yeah, let's see. And I'll just show a few other pictures of Allie. And as I show these, I'd like to thank the Bethany Historical Society for the help they gave me. Bob Britton, Will Britton, Arnold Peterson, Gladys Durley, Arlene Durley, Helen Riley, Diane Blackwell, Lydia Worcester, Teddy Cowden, Edgar Wooding, Todd Reichert, Sandy Johnson, Cindy Von Beren, Fred Shepard, Izzy Anderson, Hazel Hoppy, Gail Peabody, George Bedetti, gave me some of the, they aren't upset because some of the pictures I didn't use. Some people told me a certain thing where I could fill in and piece some of it together. But I want to thank all those people for their help. And I maybe there's one or two others. And thank you all for coming.
That's a can you top this? Thanks, Russ. That's great. I'd like everybody to join us for refreshments in the back, and we'll see you at our next speech. By the way, we do have an open house coming up let's see, what is it? April what, Billy? Open house? 21st. April 21st, 11 o'clock. 11 to 3. We're going to be open. We'll have some of these things on display.
Ground rolling? 260? I don't know. What do you got? Will 100 chairs put up this year.
Well, he set up 210 finally,
Yeah.
but then all these others.
Oh, we got bigger crowd here.
I have a feeling I'm going the wrong way. This was